Turkey is ending trade with Israel, has closed its ports and airspace to Israeli planes and ships, and has called for Israel to be expelled from the United Nations. On August 29, the Turkish authorities officially announced that they are ending all trade with Israel due to the situation in the Gaza Strip and Israel's recent strikes on neighboring Syria, Yemen, and Lebanon. Not officially, Erdogan was outraged by the statement of Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, who said the day before that he personally recognizes the mass killings of Armenians in 1915-1917 as genocide, which relates to the history of the Ottoman Empire. Moreover, amid the tension between the countries, Israel's Minister of National Security compared Turkey to terrorists. Hamas, and he accompanied his post on social network X with photos of Erdogan meeting with the leader of Hamas. Let's figure out together what's happening and why former strategic allies suddenly became sworn enemies. My name is Alexei Pechi. We'll go through everything step by step, but before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, like the video, leave any comment below, and be sure to subscribe to my Telegram channel, Peachy News. The link is in the description of this video. There we publish updates promptly. So now let's go through everything step by step. Relations between Turkey and Israel are at their worst in decades. And so, on August 29, the Turkish authorities announced that they are stopping all trade with Israel due to the situation in the Gaza Strip and Israel's recent strikes on neighboring Syria, Yemen, and Lebanon. They are also closing their airspace to Israeli planes and their ports to Israel. This was announced by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Turkey, Hakan Fidan, during a speech in the country's parliament. Here is his quote. "We have taken numerous diplomatic, legal, and trade measures. We have completely stopped trade with Israel. We have closed our ports to Israeli ships. We do not allow Turkish ships to enter Israeli ports. We do not allow container ships carrying weapons and ammunition to Israel to enter our ports, and we also do not allow Israeli planes to enter our airspace." So, as a result of this meeting, the Turkish parliament, Fidan called for suspending Israel's membership in the United Nations and other international organizations and appealed to legislative bodies around the world to end military and trade relations with Israel. This is stated in a document signed by the Speaker of the Turkish Parliament, Numan Kurtulmus. Fidan in his speech spoke about Israel's racist government and referred to Israel's operation in the Gaza Strip against militants. Hamas is a hero. And this is the key point. Remember it, we will come back to it later. Because the words racist government and genocide became the basis for such a break in relations. I'll explain what I mean later. Hakan Fidan also condemned Israel's strikes on Syria, which the authorities of that country explained as necessary to protect the Druze in the city of As-Suwaida in southwestern Syria. Israel, let me remind you, supports the Druze in the conflict with Syrian Germans. Israel, let me remind you, in the conflict with Syrian Germans, Israel let me remind you, supports the Druze in the conflict with Syrian Germans. Israel, let me remind you. Supports Israel, let me remind you, supports in the conflict with Syrian Germans. By modest estimates, the trade turnover between Israel and Turkey amounts to about $7 billion a year. And here many people have a question: why right now? Turkey has been criticizing Israel for almost 2 years now, but in practice it doesn't break ties with the Jewish state. And now such a sudden move. Of course, you could say that Turkey, now completely pushing the Russians out of Syria and essentially establishing a government loyal to itself there, is trying to take full control of Syria. And the Jews are getting in their way. But on the other hand, is it really that critical for Turkey to act this way, especially considering that Israel has been attacking Syrian territory for at least the past few years? And it's important to note here that for many years, Israel considered Turkey a key trading partner and sometimes even a security partner. In the early 2000s, relations between the two countries were at their peak, and it seemed like it would always be that way. And now let's recall how pointedly the Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan stated that all of Israel's actions are genocide, and not without reason. These words about genocide are a clear response to Netanyahu for his jab at Turkey. What happened, happened. 2 days before Hakan Fidan's statement, August 27th, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stated that he personally recognizes the mass killings of Armenians in 1915-1917 as genocide. But Turkey denies that the Ottoman Empire is responsible for the mass killings of Armenians and simply refers to it as the events of 1915. But the thing is, even amid criticism from Ankara over the war in the Gaza Strip, Israel still refused to call it genocide. Let me explain what I mean. So, during an interview with one of the most popular American podcasters, Patrick Bet-David, a native of Armenia, Netanyahu said, quote, "I think we did it. I think the Knesset passed the appropriate resolution." Well, actually, the Israeli parliament did not pass any law recognizing the Armenian genocide. When asked why no Israeli prime minister had ever recognized the Armenian genocide in the Ottoman Empire until today, Netanyahu replied that he had just recognized it. There you go. And that's true. Israel has long avoided officially recognizing the mass killing of Christians by the Ottoman Empire during World War I. However, Netanyahu has recently signaled a change in his position amid deteriorating relations with Turkey. But here's a bit of history. Back in 2001, when relations with Turkey were at their peak, at that time, Israel's foreign minister Shimon Peres categorically rejected what he called, quote, Armenian claims, stating that it was an attempt to compare what happened to the Holocaust. Even former Israeli President Reuven Rivlin, who was known for supporting the recognition of the genocide during his term, still refrained from taking any official steps in that direction. In 2018, a vote in the Knesset on the recognition of the Armenian genocide was cancelled due to a lack of sufficient support from the ruling coalition. This is a very complicated issue. The thing is, as of today, only 34 governments around the world have recognized the Armenian genocide during the Ottoman Empire. Even the United States of America only recognized the genocide in 2021. At the level of Arab countries, only Syria and Lebanon recognized the genocide. And even then, it was the previous governments. These are two countries where hundreds of thousands of citizens of Armenian descent live. In Europe, most Western European countries recognize the genocide except for Spain and the United Kingdom. And now remember Hakan Fidan's statement that Israel is supposedly also a racist state. He didn't choose that wording by accident either. Here is a statement from the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs regarding the issue of the Armenian genocide in 1915-1917, quote, "However, there is no convincing evidence supporting the claim that the Ottoman government deliberately planned to exterminate the Armenians. Moreover, there were no racist sentiments in the social and cultural structure of the Ottoman Empire that could have contributed to the commission of such a terrible crime." End of quote. In general, yes, of course, Turkey can claim that. This note of protest is related to the fact that they are trying to take full control of Syria, and here the Israelis are getting in their way. but this is just informational noise. It seems that it was Benjamin Netanyahu's statement about recognizing the Armenian genocide during the Ottoman Empire that became the final factor leading Turkey to announce the severance of all ties with Israel. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like friends. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so by donating through the links and details in the description of this video or by using the QR code on your screens. Thank you for any support. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.